Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us here at Railbookers for one of our online presentations this afternoon. Very happy New Year to you all, whilst it still seems apt to say that. January is running away with us already, but thanks very much for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a cup of coffee or tea perhaps for the next half an hour or so as I talk you through our top 5 no holidays to consider for 2021. I am speaking to you from a very dreary looking Kent this afternoon. Hope it's a little more cheery where you are. My name is Anna Davis. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for Railbookers here in the UK, and I'm going to be your host for our time together today. As I say, going to take somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes to talk with you today about some of our top suggestions for no flying holidays with Railbookers to take this year. If you do have any questions as we go through, please feel free. You should be able to see a questions box towards the right hand side of your screen. Do feel free to pop any questions you have in there as we go through. We will have some time for questions and answers at the end. If I don't get to all of the questions, then one of our team will be in touch later today to assist. So without further ado, let's make a start. So what we're going to be covering today, really a number of things, not just the top 5 holidays to consider this year, but also the flexibility that comes with a Railbookers holiday and how that works, as well as some of our hotel suggestions and a little view of some of the accommodation available in some of the destinations as well. For those of you who have been on one of our webinars before, I hope you won't mind me just taking a few minutes right at the start to go over a few bits and pieces for those that may be new to Railbookers, and I know we do have some new customers with us today, just about what makes Railbookers different, the sorts of holidays we can pop together, and how we are working within the COVID environment right now as well. And then we'll move on to the top 5 holidays. So just a few things I wanted to share. I'm not going to go through all of the points on the screen here, but these are just a few reasons why customers enjoy booking with us, enjoy traveling with us. We've been booking these independent tailor-made rail holidays for approaching 17 years now, so our team have a lot of expert knowledge and very happy to make suggestions and recommendations to you. We do have the option to book up to 2 years in advance, so right now we are able to book into January 2023, perhaps never been as important as it is now to have that flexibility with booking. In many ways, really simply put, if the train goes there, so do we. So we can create an itinerary for you. You can take an itinerary from our website, from many of the holidays that we're going to share today. You can make any number of amendments to them, add in extra nights, add in extra destinations, depart on any day that you wish. There is nothing fixed about a Railbookers itinerary because they are for independent travellers. They're not groups or escorted tours, so you do have that freedom to piece together the itinerary that you really want to take. And we do have a huge number of holidays available and different types of holidays, whether that might be luxury, whether it might be multi-city, whether that is an add-on to a river cruise perhaps that you've already booked for later this year and you'd like to reach that port by rail. Any number of ways in which Railbookers can assist with a wide number of trips. And we have recently expanded our peace of mind or our maximum flexibility policy to bookings, both new reservations and existing reservations, up to the 31st of March 2021, so 3 months away. I'm just getting a few reports that people are having some issues hearing me. So I do hope that you can, everybody or most people, still hear me. My audio cue seems to say that my microphone is still working, so do hope that's the case. Excellent, thank you for confirming you can hear me, that's brilliant. For those of you who have had perhaps some sound issues, possibly best to disconnect and then reconnect again, choosing the computer audio and see whether that works better a second time around. But as I say, we have recently extended our maximum flexibility or our peace of mind promise to the end of March, giving you the option to postpone or cancel or change your holiday up to 5 days prior to departure without incurring any fees. If you have any questions on that, if you'd like any more information on that, please do give us a call on the number that you see on the screen there, 0203 780 2222. Now, as I mentioned, our holidays are independent, they're not escorted, but that doesn't mean that you are entirely alone when you travel. So you do have the support from our teams around the world, wherever you may be, whatever time zone you're in. There will be somebody awake from the Railbookers team to assist if you need us whilst you're away. So just our offices there globally, in the UK, in California and Massachusetts in the US, in Canada, Toronto, and also in Sydney, Australia. And also just wanted to touch on a number of the rail partners that we work with, just to give you an idea of the destinations that we serve. Many of these we'll be covering in today's presentation as well. Eurostar, Trenitalia for Italy, SNCF for France, for example, and Deutsche Bahn in Germany. But we have been working with these partnerships for a long time, so we do get access to their fares and to their timetables well in advance of public opening, so we can put those itineraries together for you, inclusive of the rail tickets, but also the hotel accommodation, excursions, sightseeing, transfers, car hire in some cases as well. If you want that sort of extra freedom to explore certain more rural destinations, then all of that is possible. And lastly, before I move on to those top 5 fantastic holidays, just wanted to touch really on what's happening more broadly on board the trains and at the stations to maintain a safe environment for all concerned. Now, as you can imagine, this is a bit of a movable feast, and things do change week from week to week. So if there are any specific questions that you have on a specific rail company, then please do get in touch, and we'd be glad to assist via our guest relations team to answer that. But in broad strokes, this is what has been happening throughout last year, and also as we move obviously into this new year, about what the train companies are doing in general terms. So facial coverings obviously required in stations and on trains. Many of the rail companies have stopped selling food and drink on board, and some are restricting food and drink being taken on board as well. They are changing the seating configuration on many departures so that there is extra spacing available on the train to allow for some social distancing between customers. They are, as you might expect, and have continued to increase their cleaning regimes during the journey in the common areas, but also at the end of service, giving the train sets a very deep clean every time. And we are looking to minimise the amount of contact between yourself and the train staff. So a lot of the documentation now can be scanned from a PDF, not having to be passed between customer and train manager on board, and that continues to increase as we move through 2021 as well. So, without further ado, some fantastic holidays to share with you this afternoon. Hope you're sitting comfortably as we take a little bit of a whistle stop tour around some of our favourite European destinations, all of which can be taken there and back by train, no flights required if you don't want to take them. A few things just to mention as we move through to the first holiday here, the Grand Tour of Scotland. Firstly, we can take care of your UK rail requirements as well. So if you'd like to start any of our holidays from your local UK station, we can book those tickets for you to then reach London to start the next part of the journey in many cases if you're going over to the continent, or indeed on a UK break if you'd like to join from your local station and amend the route slightly to reach the end destination within the British Isles, then that's also entirely possible. Other thing, as I mentioned at the beginning, none of these itineraries are set in stone. There's an element of flexibility in all of them. If you'd like to stay in any of the destinations for longer, if you'd like to do any of the itineraries in reverse, if you'd like to remove one of the destinations from the itinerary because you've already visited it numerous times, for example, all of these things are possible. So do bear that in mind as we go through the different holidays today. So the Grand Tour of Scotland then, a 10-day trip, and a great option for a closer to home getaway when we are allowed to travel again. Starting price of £1,249. This trip really embodies actually what a lot of our holidays do, and that is combining some really iconic experiences on board the train, in this case on board the Caledonian Sleeper and indeed on the Jacobite steam train on the West Highland line, with some fabulous scenery en route, here of course in the Highlands and the Isle of Skye, with some iconic classic city destinations as well. So really giving you the best of lots of different worlds, lots of different experiences there, all in one trip. So this starts with one night travelling on board the Caledonian Sleeper in club class from London up to Inverness. We have you based in Inverness for 2 nights, during which time you'll have a day trip out to the Cardiff Loch Lash and onwards to the Isle of Skye for the day. And then after a second night in Inverness, it's back down on the rails to Glasgow. You'll have 2 nights to explore fabulous city of Glasgow before moving north to Fort William, staying in Glencoe for 2 nights. And from there, you'll do a second day trip out on the West Highland line. Now, depending on the time of year you choose to do this trip, if it's between April and September, you do have the option to travel on the Jacobite steam train, which we'll look at in a few slides' time. If it's outside of those times, you travel on the normal standard West Highland line, but the magnificent scenery still the same, and a beautiful part of the world to explore from your very own window seat. After the time in Glencoe and Fort William, it's back down to Edinburgh, and you'll have a 2-night stay in Edinburgh to round off the trip before then travelling back to London, or indeed back, as I say, to any local UK train station. So a few images of the holiday, the destinations coming up now, and this is the Caledonian Sleeper. So as you may know, this train service was effectively relaunched in 2019 with brand new trains. So very good quality of service on board in terms of the accommodation. There are 3 classes of service on board: the classic, the club and the double. As I said, this holiday includes accommodation in the club, which is the image on the right hand side. So they have a sort of a twin bed accommodation here, and also en-suite facilities for you overnight, and your breakfast also included in this as well. Now there is a fantastic dining car on board the Caledonian Sleeper, and a fantastic restaurant car as well, where all the food is made fresh to order by some fantastic private chefs, lots of regional produce, fully stocked bar with lots of single malts available, amongst other things. At the moment, and in COVID times, people are being encouraged to eat within their cabin rather than in the dining car. But hopefully, as we all hope for better things to come this year, that will reopen, and customers will be able to spend some time in that communal area as well. Now, if you're travelling for a special occasion, want to treat yourself, you may also want to consider the Caledonian Double, a fairly rare thing in train terms. There aren't many overnight trains now that still have a full-size double bed on board as an option. The Caledonian Double is one of a handful, and there are 2 Caledonian Doubles on each service up to Scotland. So if you are looking, as I say, to celebrate in a little bit more style, a little bit more comfort, then the Caledonian Double with full-on suite facilities and breakfast and dinner included is the one to consider. Now, just a few images of the destinations themselves. You've got top left, of course, the Isle of Skye, known for its rugged landscapes. It's the largest of the Inner Hebrides Islands, and some beautiful villages like Portree, which are also included on that day trip to explore the smaller fishing villages as well. Top right, you've got, of course, the wide open space of Loch Lomond. Bottom left, you've got Inverness, great place, and lots to discover actually in Inverness. The Victorian Market, the Botanic Gardens, and Inverness's Museum and Art Gallery as well there to spend some time. And then bottom right, just an example of one thing you could explore in Edinburgh. This is the Dean Village, which is a real oasis of calm actually away from the city centre, just a few minutes from Princes Street. And in the past it was home to various mills of various kinds, and you can still see that sort of industrial heritage there as you wander around. Lovely place to spend a few hours walking through the history of that particular part of the city. Now, you also, as I mentioned, have the option, depending on the time of year you travel, to journey on board the Jacobite steam train from Fort William to Mallaig. Now, quite rightly described as one of the world's greatest train journeys. It is just 84 miles as a round trip, but it's a fabulous day trip and takes you through some incredible scenery, some real extremes as well. Just to name a few, it starts, of course, nearest the highest mountain in Britain, Ben Nevis. You'll pass close by the deepest freshwater loch in Britain, Loch Morar, and the shortest river in Britain, River Morar, before finally arriving next to the deepest seawater loch in Europe at Loch Nevis. You do, of course, cross over the Glenfinnan Viaduct, the image there you see on the right-hand side, which may remind you, possibly if you've seen the film, of Harry Potter. It is used as the Hogwarts Express in the train. In the film, and just a magnificent way to travel through this beautiful part of the world. You also, on a clear day, may get to see over to the small isles of Rum and Muck and Canna if it's clear, and possibly even over to the southern tip of Skye. So lots of beautiful scenery, and for obvious reasons, it does book up fast. So if this is something you're considering for 2021 or for 2022, then by all means do let us know as soon as possible. I also wanted to share with you just a few examples in this presentation this afternoon of some of the accommodation options that we have available at Railbookers. And as with all of our holiday options, really, lots of flexibility, lots of choice. And we do have 3 and 4 and 5-star rated properties in most of the destinations that we cover. And that gives you choice, of course, in terms of budget, but also in terms of style, decor, location. And we will always be happy to make suggestions, but just wanted to share with you some of the featured options that we have. So here in Edinburgh, for example, our featured hotel is the Caledonian. It's a real icon, really, in Edinburgh on Princes Street, and has been there since 1903. A real combination of luxury and Victorian style, and was a former railway station. So all proportions are really, really impressive. And equally, you have magnificent views over Edinburgh Castle, which you may just be able to see through the hotel windows there. So just an example of one of the hotels you could be staying at if you opted for one of our Scottish trips, including Edinburgh. Now, moving further afield, I wanted to share with you one of our Swiss itineraries, Switzerland's lakes and mountains. We do have a large number of different Swiss itineraries, but this one really talks you through and shares with you some of the most scenic options that we have for discovering the country by rail. As I said, this presentation really is all about places you can get to and explore and visit without having to fly. Switzerland, no exception to that, and very, very easy to reach by rail, by high-speed rail. So let me talk you through this itinerary. It's suggested as a 6-day itinerary, although in many cases customers do extend to stay for longer. Has a starting price of £1,399. Now, it's based on arriving into Geneva and travelling back out from Zurich. Very easy to do this by high-speed rail. It's a Eurostar journey from London to Paris, a transfer of stations across Paris, which can be done either by public transport, or if you prefer, we can organise a private transfer for that part of the journey. And then it's on to the high-speed network, onto the TGV Lyria service, directly down to Geneva. Once in Geneva, you'll transfer then onto the Swiss network to arrive in the glorious location of Montreux on the edge of Lake Le Mans there. You have a night stay there before then embarking on the first of 4 incredible scenic journeys in one trip. And the first starts with the Golden Pass. We will have a little look at some of the trains and the scenery on the next few slides, but let me just talk you through the itinerary first. So the Golden Pass, sometimes overlooked actually, in terms of scenic rail journeys in Switzerland, but it's a magnificent one to do actually. There are 3 different train journeys within the Golden Pass network, and on this trip you do 2 of them. So you'll travel from Montreux to Zweisimmen, and then from Zweisimmen on to Interlaken. Once you're in Interlaken, you have a 2-night stay there, beautifully located between Lake Thun and Lake Brienz, and a great place to use as a base to explore lots of different Swiss locations, actually using the flexibility that you get with your Swiss pass, which is included in this trip. Whilst you're in Interlaken, you will have a day trip on the Jungfraujoch Railway, the second of the scenic rail journeys here, which takes you to the highest European railway station. A really great journey, and again, we'll have a look at that shortly. After your time in Interlaken comes to an end, you'll then travel down through Brig to then pick up the second part of the Glacier Express route. Now, Glacier Express in its entirety runs from Chur to Zermatt, and on this part of the journey you'll travel for part of it from Brig up to Chur. Chur being Switzerland's oldest city, and again a lovely base for a couple of nights stay. And then whilst in Chur, the final scenic leg of the journey is on the world famous Bernina Express, on many people's lists for the year ahead, which takes you as a day trip from St Moritz to Tirano, just over the border in Italy, for a lunch, and then back again to St Moritz and Chur for your final stay, before then travelling up to Zurich for a night, back to Chur for your final night, on to Zurich, and then the high-speed journey directly back to Paris, and then Eurostar back to London. So have a look at the train journeys themselves. You can see all of these scenic trains in Switzerland have these big wide windows, so you really can take in all of the scenery as you travel. The Golden Pass, as I say, takes you from Montreux to Interlaken via Zweisimmen. And as with all of the journeys here, really, it's a journey full of contrast. So you'll climb very quickly from the lakeside beauty of Montreux through into alpine forests, passing mountain springs, picturesque mountain villages, and then into the heart of the Bernese Oberland as you travel alongside Lake Thun to reach Interlaken. The Glacier Express here, for example, nicknamed the slowest express train in the world. It's again full of ever-changing scenery. You start very low, you'll snake through the valleys up onto the top of the glacier, having gone through any number of tunnels, bridges, and you then find yourself, depending on the time of year, gliding along on the tracks on the top of the glacier, whilst cross-country skiers are on the other side. In the summer, you'll see the glorious alpine meadows and the beautiful flowers as you travel. So not really a bad time of year to do the Glacier Express. It's lovely as the seasons change. And the Jungfrau barn, as I mentioned, the journey up to the top of the Jungfrau here, the highest European railway station. Fabulous views, as you would expect, from the top over to the Black Forest in Germany, to the Vosges Mountains in France. And we do very often recommend that you take this journey a different route up to a different route back. So you do a round trip, taking in different angles of the scenery. So you'll start firstly by climbing up to Kleiner Scheidegg on the train. The top of the Jungfrau, incidentally, is 3,454 meters, so it's fairly colossal. So on the way up, you'll travel via Kleiner Scheidegg. And then on the way back, you travel down via Lauterbrunnen. So it just gives you a different perspective of the mountains, the valleys as you travel, and keeps it a little bit more interesting, but spectacular scenery as you travel, as you would expect. And then lastly but not leastly on this trip, the fourth scenic train is the world famous Bernina Express. And this, as I say, takes you from St Moritz to Tirano on a day trip return on this particular itinerary. Does feature in many of our Swiss holidays, of course, but on this one it's a round trip. And a few train facts, because they're always fun. 55 tunnels, 196 bridges, and at its most extreme, a gradient of 70%. And the Bernina Pass, its highest, is 2,253 meters. Really, as with a lot of these journeys, it does give you a view from your seat that you really wouldn't get traveling really any other way. It's a beautiful part to explore, with this really kind of unique view of the world as you travel, and for obvious reasons comes very highly recommended from past customers. Now, if alpine scenery and the alpine journey is something that you're interested in, then we do have another option forming one of our top 5 no-fly holidays, and that's the Arlberg Pass itineraries. A number of different ones available, but I've picked one of the most popular, and that's combining Zurich, Salzburg, and Vienna. So we'll have a look at this one now. It's a 7-day itinerary with a starting price of £1,159. Again, this starts with high-speed rail on Eurostar from London to Paris, changing in Paris to travel directly to Zurich, and you'll have a one-night stay in Zurich before then, after breakfast, embarking on really the real rail highlight of this trip, and that is travelling through the Arlberg Pass to reach Salzburg. So you'll leave Zurich behind, you'll travel along the banks of Lake Zurich, before the alpine scenery starts. You'll briefly pass through Liechtenstein before you then enter into Austria, and you'll travel along the Arlberg Pass. Again, lots of ever-changing scenery, really. Mountain meadows, high peaks, ever-changing as you turn through the tracks. And then down into Salzburg, and you'll have a 2-night stay in the real fairy tale city of Salzburg, before then moving on to Vienna for a 3-night stay, 2 full days to explore all that Vienna has to offer, before then travelling either by rail back via Cologne and Brussels to St Pancras, or if you wish, taking the flight option. And those are always available for our European itineraries. If you'd like to do the round trip by rail, always available. If you'd like to do one leg in each direction, also that's possible. So again, lots of flexibility. It's your holiday. It's down to you as to how you would like us to create it. A few images here of the Arlberg Pass holiday. You've got Zurich top left with part of the edge of the old town there by the river. You've then got Salzburg and its fairy tale location, really, with its castle at the top on the right hand side on the banks of the Salzach River, and then Vienna bottom left, and because you get the Vienna card, Vienna Pass, with our Viennese trips, you have really access to all of the monuments, excursions, sightseeing options that you would wish, really, when you're visiting there. So you could, for example, very easily take the public transport included in the Vienna Pass out to the Schönbrunn Palace, bottom left, for example, or visit any number of the museums. Or if you're a bit like me, why not take in the cafe culture, sit and have a number of coffees, a big piece of cake, and do some people watching. It's a great city to do that in as well, with its real heritage of the coffee and cafe culture there. And right hand side, just a sneak peek really of some of the spectacular scenery on the Arlberg Pass on the top of the peaks there. So again, beautiful cities, beautiful scenery, and some real rail highlights all combined into one trip. Next, I'd like to take you to Italy, and Italy has always been a real favourite for Railbookers customers. I wanted to share with you a combination that we have seen inquiring recently, and that's Florence, Siena, and Lucca. It also gives me an opportunity to share with you how pretty much all of our Italian holidays start by rail, and that is using Geneva and the Simplon Pass to travel into northern Italy. So on this 8-day holiday, starting from £969 per person, you'll travel again on Eurostar to Paris, connecting in Paris onto the high-speed TGV network down to Geneva, again a direct service, and we'll have you in Geneva for 1 night, and then or longer if you wish to stay for longer, of course. But after your stay in Geneva, you'll then embark on, again, the rail highlight really here, which is along the Simplon Pass into northern Italy. Now, this is somewhere between 7 and 8 hours journey time, and this is very often one of the journeys that we would suggest upgrading to first class, so you have a little bit more legroom, a little bit more comfort, and a better view really, because there are less seats in first class to really make the most of those views as you travel. And you leave Geneva after breakfast, snaking again around the banks of Lake Geneva. The beautiful vineyards will start appearing on the right-hand banks of the Geneva as you leave, and then you'll start to snake into the Alpine scenery before crossing the Simplon Pass, which was the historic routing of the Orient Express, the Venice Simplon Orient Express. And then as you cross the border into Italy, you'll come back down and end up passing, for example, Lake Maggiore. So again, a real journey of contrast and some magnificent scenery as you travel all from your seat. Then in Milan, you'll change trains onto the high-speed network to reach Florence. Now, we use this journey, as I say, to start pretty much all of our Italian trips. So whether you're looking to go on this one to Florence, Siena, and Lucca, or whether Verona, Venice, Cinque Terre, Amalfi, any of the Italian lakes, this would be the way that journey would start. It's our Via the Alps itinerary, and it forms the backbone of all of our Italian trips. On this one, you'll travel to Florence, as I say. You have 2 nights in the beautiful city of Florence, before then heading on to Siena for 2 nights and to Lucca for 2 nights in the heart of Tuscany, before then either returning, of course, by rail which is back up to Milan for an overnight there, and then doing the Simplon Pass route in reverse, or indeed the option is always there to fly if you prefer. Just an example of some of the scenery. This is on the Simplon Pass as we reach northern Italy. This was taken by one of my colleagues the year before last. This is Lake Maggiore, directly from her train seat, from her window. You can see that the trees are a little blurry in the foreground there as we're moving, but it does give you a good idea, I think, of some of the scenery included in the trip. And then the beautiful destinations of Florence, Siena, and Lucca. As I say, you have 2 nights in each of these destinations. Florence, of course, really doesn't need any introduction, and you could spend, of course, a lot longer than 2 nights there, which is possible. Plenty of time to wander along the banks of the Arno, to visit the Boboli Gardens, to have a skip the line entrance into the Uffizi Gallery, for example, to name but a few things to do. Then you've got your 2 nights in Siena, surrounded by olive groves and the vineyards of Chianti, some magnificent Romanesque architecture. You've got the Duomo to visit, and again, this is also a UNESCO World Heritage Protected Site as well. So you won't be running out of magnificent views and things to photograph there. Then it's on to Lucca, 2-night stay again in this 16th century walled town. A really charming spot, some obviously fantastic places to dine, some antique markets to visit as well, and it is only half an hour away from the coast as well, so if you fancy to potter out to the sea, then that's also very feasible from Lucca as well. Now, in terms of hotel suggestions on this trip, as I say, we do have a range, 3, 4, and 5 star. If you're looking to celebrate a special occasion, if you're looking perhaps to treat yourselves after 2020 and really to make up for lost time perhaps in 2021, then you may want to explore some of the more luxury side of our hotel offering, and they don't come much better than this. This is the Belmond Villa San Michele in Florence. It is in the hills just behind Florence, a 14th century magnificent building, facade attributed to Michelangelo. And it's set in a beautiful woodland, has a lovely terrace with a real panoramic view over Florence and the Chianti Hills. So this is just one of those suggested upgrade options that we have available if you wanted to look at some of the more luxurious accommodation available as well. And then last but not leastly, it's on to Grand Berlin, Prague, Vienna, and Budapest. Now, we often refer to this as one of our cruise by land holidays because it really does combine some really iconic, obviously the imperial cities here, but it does also really illustrate how seamless it is to travel between major European cities, crossing into multi-country holidays here. To do that by rail, it's very, very easy, it's very comfortable, it's very efficient, and a very enjoyable way to spend 8 nights, 9 days really, in these imperial destinations. So let me talk you through the itinerary here. You'll start again in London on the Eurostar to Brussels, changing in Brussels, this time just a platform change in Brussels. You don't have to change stations. So then take you via Cologne to Berlin. Now, if you are in the southeast, if you're relatively close to the Eurostar terminal, that's very feasible to do in the one day, to be in Berlin for early evening. If you're living a little further afield, we have a couple of options there. Either you can travel to London the night before and stay pretty close to St Pancras station so that you can start the journey relatively early from St Pancras the following morning. Or the other option, and one that many of our customers choose, is to embark on the journey and perhaps overnight first of all in Brussels or Cologne and then do the rest of the journey the following day. So a couple of options there depending on your preference. But once you've reached Berlin, you then have a 2-night stay in each of those cities respectively, in Berlin, Prague, Vienna, and Budapest. Because this is a grand holiday, and all of our grand holidays are this way as well, all of the travel is in first class. So the Eurostar will be in standard Premier, and all of the rail journeys throughout will be in first class. And also because it's grand, you do have a wealth of excursions and sightseeing included as standard in this. So just to give you a few ideas of what is included as standard here, you have the hop-on, hop-off passes in Berlin, Prague, and Vienna. You have a chocolate making workshop in Vienna. You have a secret food tour in Prague. You have a walking tour and a guided tour of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. You have a candlelit dinner cruise in Budapest on the river, and you also have a skip the line entrance to one of the spas in Budapest as well, and more. So there's lots available there to really make the most of your city stays and to really explore those destinations. So just a few images of those cities. And as I go through these, obviously here, Berlin and Prague, Vienna on the left, and the beautiful Parliament building of Budapest on the right. Also, a good time just for me to mention the excursions and sightseeing, that these are also flexible as well. So if an itinerary includes a particular excursion or sightseeing option that you are perhaps not interested in doing, it's not what you want to spend your time there doing, if you prefer to do something else, then please do let us know, because again, we have a wealth of excursion options that we can swap so that it is more suited to your interests and preferences. So that can also be changed as well. And the featured hotel on this holiday, again, just to give you an idea of some of the range available, this is the Steigenberger Hotel in Berlin. Really lovely location in the center of the city, only a 5-minute walk from the Kurfürstendamm and the Brandenburg Gate, the Reichstag, Checkpoint Charlie, just 20 minutes away on the very efficient public transport network there as well. So again, just to give you an idea of where you could be staying and some of our partnered hotels that we work with. So I hope you have found that overview of our 5 rail holidays useful. Just a little bit more from me before I open up to your questions, and thanks for those of you who have put them in. I can see a few already. Our website, railbookers.co.uk, of course, has a lot more information on the holidays that I've covered today, as well as a wealth of other itineraries. The pricing grid all the way through for the next 2 years, the itinerary map, and the day-by-day breakdown of your journey. We don't have the option to book online. So if you have an inquiry, if you'd like us to help you put something together for this year or next, then do just give us a call on the number there. Prefer to speak to you so that we really can understand what's important to you and really get the itinerary just right for you. And as you will probably know by now, we do run these online presentations every week. And I just wanted, now that we're in the new year, to showcase some of the topics that we've got coming up over the next few weeks. As you'll see on the screen there, we are now moving back to having a Tuesday and Thursday session for you to choose from. So you have a little bit more choice there. First of all, coming up next week, we have luxury rail experiences with Railbookers, looking a little bit more worldwide, not just in Europe, but some of our worldwide luxury itineraries there. The following week, the 26th and 28th of January, we'll be looking specifically at Switzerland, Italy, and beyond on the kind of alpine journeys that you can take there, and our top 5 holiday suggestions for those destinations. And then the following week, a little bit of an insight into what it's like on board some of the iconic rail journeys when you travel with Railbookers. If you would like to be registered for any of those, a couple of options: either pop in the questions box this afternoon and I'll take care of that after the presentation, or equally, as you'll know, our newsletters do have the sign-ups and registration links for those, so do keep an eye out for those later this week and into next week for those sessions. Be great to have you with us if you can join. So at this point, I'm going to open up to your questions. So please just bear with me whilst I go through these. I can see a few questions for assistance, really. So let me take those. We certainly can cater for any passengers that require assistance, and there are obviously different levels of assistance that are required, but we work very closely with the railways, with the stations, so that if you are perhaps wheelchair bound, for example, if you struggle to carry your own luggage very far, for example, we can arrange assistance at the station to help you get from the platform to the train, from the train to the private transfer pickup, for example, and to get to your hotel. So that can certainly be arranged. The caveat, of course, is that our holidays outside of the train journey section and outside of the station are independent, so you will then be independent whilst you're exploring those destinations. But absolutely, yes, we can certainly help when you are travelling on the trains in and around the stations, so you can help so that you can take part in these holidays, of course. I can see a few questions looking from travel agents as well for access to marketing materials. So of course I will follow up with you on that separately. I can also see somebody that says they joined late and can they get a recording? Absolutely. So you will get a recording sent through automatically tomorrow to finish or to watch the start of it. Equally, if you've watched the whole thing and want to share it with your partner or friends, for example, then you can forward it on to them. And I can also see a question about hotels. It's a good question, asking, are you limited to hotels on the website? No, we're not. So the hotels that we feature on our website, again, are suggestions. But if you have somewhere specific in mind that you don't see, again, let us know and let us know where you'd like to be. And 9 times out of 10, we can take care of that preference as well. And can also see a question about deposits and how that works. So as I say, we can book up to 2 years in advance. So if you are booking more than 3 months out, which most people are at the moment, then you'll be asked for a small deposit, typically of £250 per person, which will lock in your holiday. You'll then pay the balance at 90 days before travel. And then typically 2 to 3 weeks before you depart, you'll be sent all of your travel documentation. Now, as I say, they're independent holidays, but the itinerary is very detailed. So you'll get all of your instructions in terms of the train journeys, of course, the hotel accommodation. But if we've booked any excursions, if you've booked any of those sightseeing, where the meeting points are, the timings for all of that, who you're looking for, all of that will be provided so that you have everything you need in your hands before you travel. So if I haven't got around to your question, one of my team, as I say, will be back in touch this afternoon. All that really remains for me to say is thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. It's been great to have your company. Hope you've found it a little inspirational, given you a bit of escapism on this Tuesday afternoon, and hopefully given you some ideas of where you might choose to escape to later this year when we're allowed to travel. But in the meantime, take good care. It's lovely to have you with me, and I look forward to speaking to you soon on another online presentation. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.